we've decided to enter the wonderful world of soil blocking, but a quick search on the internet and you'll see there are tons of different recipes and which one actually works. So today I'm going to test them out for you. I've got my soil blockers. I have got a whole bunch of components to make a whole bunch of different recipes, and we're going to see what works the best. Hey, if you're new to this channel, I'm Kristen with Shifting Roots, and I help new gardeners learn to grow vegetables and flowers with ease, especially if you are in a cold climate with a short growing season. I'm on Instagram and Facebook pretty much every single day, so you can see behind the scenes and exactly what to do when if you also live in a cold climate and short growing season too. All right, so let's go over the components of all the different recipes and my plans for today. Today I'm testing out a couple different soil recipes. So first we're gonna do the classic Eliot Coleman recipe. Then we're gonna try two different recipes that I found in other blogs on the internet. I will link all of those down below so you can see those original sources. Then I've also heard that it's just easier to do plain potting soil and get it kind of moist. So I'm gonna try it with some regular potting soil that I have, as well as a special seed starting mix. For all of my seed starts, I actually just use regular potting soil. I've never invested in proper seed starting mix, so I also kind of want to see if that makes a difference. So these are the two seed blockers that I'm using. This little one here, this is the 3/4 inch size. So you just squeeze it and those come out. And then they fit into this 2-inch size, like that. And then if you want to fit them in, you'll attach the little cubes onto these bits. I bought these two as part of a kit at Lee Valley Tools. I figured it was just easier than buying them one off, and I just wanted a system that works right away as soon as I get it out of the box. I'm also using some all-purpose Gaia Green fertilizer. This is 444. Basically, I think any all-purpose fertilizer would probably work. This is just what I'm choosing to use because it was suggested in the recipes. As well, I have just some white labels just to keep things organized. We're going to try different types of lettuce. And then finally, I grabbed a garden marker. So don't use Sharpie, don't use pen, don't even try and use pencil or your kids' markers. You really do need to get some sort of garden marker like this. All right, starting with the easiest recipe first. So I've already put some of the seed starting mix into this bowl, and then I'm just gonna take some water and we're gonna pour that in, and then we'll mix it with a spoon to start and use our hands if we need to. So this feels pretty wet and soggy now, like it looks like mud, but it's not super runny mud. So let's go with this. Okay, let's check out my first attempt. Well, could be worse, like, there, oh dear, no, that's so muddy. You couldn't, that's falling apart. All right, I think maybe not so muddy. I'll add some more soil. All right, let's try this. This is really hard to like get everything filled in one scoop. I could see where using a bowl is maybe not the smartest. You'd maybe need something with straight edges. I don't know. All right, let's see how this does. Okay, that looks better. Yeah, this is definitely staying together more. You can see like it's actually a little cube. I think this is more what we're going for. So hooray, success. Now to try the large ones. I feel like this larger one should be easier. Like hopefully it's easier to scoop up soil. I'm sure this is just because I'm really new at it and there's gotta be like a learning curve that you just sort of go through, but that took a lot of time. Oh my goodness. Clearly my bowl is not big enough. Like you should be doing this on a much larger scale. Whatever, for our experiment, I'm just gonna suffer. All right, I think that looks good. So not bad. I mean, they're a little crumblier than maybe I would like, but from what I have read, this is probably about the texture that we're going for. So far, the seed starting soil looks to be pretty decent. So next up is just the regular potting soil. Now, this has been sitting out just sort of like in a side room for a while. So this stuff is pretty dry. I think normally if you'd be buying it new, it'd have a little more moisture in it. So I'm gonna have to maybe add a little more water than I would normally. We're gonna aim for that same consistency of texture that we did in the last one. Let's get to it. See if I'm any better at filling these up. Okay. I think we're getting closer. I'm gonna say not bad, didn't have to use the spoon. Looks about the same. A little more perlite in this mix than maybe that mix. Okay, these blocks look pretty good too. I think we have the right moisture consistency. So next we're gonna try the classic Eliot Coleman recipe. So unfortunately, when I'm filming this, it is the middle of winter. It is minus 30 degrees Celsius out, and not everything is stocked at my local garden center. It's still a little bit early for like the general public who starts maybe like their tomato and pepper seeds to get started. So I couldn't find some ideal supplies. For one, I didn't see any lime at the store, so there will be no lime in this recipe. For the compost parts, I used worm casings. Also, they did not have straight up peat moss. Actually, after reading the ingredients of the seed starting mix, the first ingredient is peat moss. So even though maybe it's cheating because it has a little bit of the other stuff in it, I think for the circumstances I'm in, this will be our substitute for the peat moss. Also in the recipe, it says to use buckets, but because I'm just running an experiment, I really don't need buckets and buckets of stuff, especially since it's not even really seed starting time yet. So this is going to be my bucket. And then when it says a cup, I think I'm just going to use maybe like a teaspoon in place of a cup. So first up, 3 parts of our finely milled peat. 1, 2, 3. Next is 2 buckets of perlite. My stuff already has perlite in it, so I'm gonna go a little light in the measurements. Next is our base fertilizer. Next is 1 bucket garden soil or topsoil and 2 buckets of organic compost. So first couple of thoughts, this mixture compared to the other mixtures, this one feels a lot finer than the other 2, and I think they're gonna hold up a little bit better, but I guess we'll see when we try it. Okay, definitely easier to get the soil into the soil blocker, 100%. Oh, that's a lot nicer. Next up, the big guy. So I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this with the camera. Now the tops don't look so hot and this one fell off, but those bottoms, like the sides all around, that looks really stable. Maybe when you compare it to just the regular potting soil and the seed starting mix, you can't really see, but this one definitely looks a lot better, kind of has that brownie texture. In this next recipe, we are using coconut coir. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, instead of peat moss. Now, I have never used coconut, maybe coir? I don't know. Just tell me in the comments how you pronounce it and forgive me for butchering it this entire video. So basically it comes in a big block like this, and the block splits off into 4 slabs. Now I have a feeling for what I need to do, probably even 1 slab is too much. So I'm gonna try and rip off half of this slab and then hydrated in the water. Okay, so our coconut coir is all hydrated. I'm gonna say this is approximately 3 parts. If you've never hydrated it before, use boiling water. Your life will be so much easier. Okay, so now we need 2 parts perlite. And then 2 parts compost. 1 part garden soil. So we're just gonna use our seed starting mix because we don't have anything else. And then she has a mix of different fertilizers, but because I didn't want to purchase all of those, I'm just going to use the all-purpose fertilizer. The Sierra Flower Farm mix is for flower farms. So in that case, I would probably use my blooming blend if I was specifically going to do flowers, but I am not in this experiment. So we're just going to use the all-purpose. So this one's definitely stringier than the others because of the coconut coir, but that's pretty decent. So I'm not really noticing huge differences. Now these other ones have dried out a little bit, but looks good. Looks like it's gonna hold together. I'm gonna remove 1 row just because I want it all to fit in the same tray. A little crumbly, but holding its shape. All right, our big soil blocking experiment is done for today. Now we're gonna put these little seeds and these soil blocks underneath the grow lights, and I will see you in a few weeks, maybe even a few days if we get fast germination. So it's day 4 and we're starting to get some germination in these big soil blocks. As well, we have these ones starting to germinate. Now, not everything is, oh, these ones are starting to. This set where they're closer together seems to be holding up better. This set, I don't know if it's just maybe the way I'm watering. You know, the blocks are together, but you can definitely tell like there is some serious crumbling from the watering, and I don't know why. Oh, I guess I have different lettuce varieties and stuff, but none of these have germinated yet. Only here, the lettuce seeds that I actually saved myself. Don't pay attention to that label. That's not actually what it is. Hey friends, so it's been 3 weeks into our experiment and I think I have my final results and my final opinions on what works best for a soil block recipe. Now you'll notice my voice is sounding a little bit sad. Unfortunately, my family and I all got sick with coronavirus. Everyone is fine, like it was fairly mild for us, but unfortunately my voice is still not fine. But it's been so long since I posted something for you that I thought I'm just gonna go ahead because I know that you're gonna need these results as you're probably gonna start seed starting soon. So just to recap, I did 4 different mixes. So I did just seed starting mix, just potting soil, the Elliott Coleman recipe, so that's like the classic. And then finally, I did a version of the Elliott Coleman recipe that uses coconut coir, as of course that's something I would like to move to because it is more sustainable than peat moss.
Now, I think one of the biggest things that surprised me about this whole experiment was that there was really no clear winner. I think that each of these methods could work. What's actually most important is that whatever recipe you use, that the ingredients are as fine of a mix as possible. Another really important thing is how you water them. So for these little tiny cubes here, the 20s, if you just straight up water them, these are gonna just disintegrate and fall apart, especially if they get too wet. Another thing is if you try to like water in the center, that's not gonna work. What you need to do for watering is you have to water at a spot where it doesn't directly touch the cubes. Now the other thing is I actually found it was much better to just use a spray and to spray those cubes and keep them moisturized that way. And then this second round that I did not fall apart. It's looking really good. And I can easily take a cube, move it, transfer it, and do whatever I need to do with it. I also feel my experiment was a little bit unfair because if you were soil blocking, you would not leave these spaces in between. And I think the soil blocks are really designed to be put close together like in this tray. So this tray is the Elliott Coleman mix and it really did not fall apart very much. Well, now let's compare it to over here. And you can see there's quite a bit of stuff that fell away, but again, it just didn't have the things to support it together. Another thing I noticed is that if you plan on moving your soil blocks, it's really important that they're not too dry and they're not too wet. In either of those circumstances, if you try to move them at the either improper moisture level, they seem to fall apart a little bit easier. So you definitely want to wait until your soil block is like mostly dry, but it still has a little bit of moisture left in it to move. So in conclusion, what I think my favorites are just seeing how the blocks held up over the different weeks. If you don't have a lot of time and you just want to do like quick and easy, then I would get seed starting mix and just use straight up seed starting mix. I felt the particles in the potting soil were a little bit bigger, so it fell apart a little bit easier. Now I do know some people who they do potting soil mix, but they purposely sift some of those bigger items out. And I think that's also a very good option. As for the overall winner, I think the coconut coir mix is my favorite. I just felt that it held up the best. It's also being a little more sustainable than some of the other recipes, and the blocks look really happy. But as I said in the beginning of this segment, I felt there was no super clear winner. Like there isn't one mix that's really terrible or one that's like really ahead of the pack. I think what it mostly comes down to is proper watering technique, making sure when you make the cubes that they're tightly packed and you have that moisture in there so that when you're squeezing it, like moisture squishes out, keeping them tightly spaced together. So you don't want them spaced apart like I have in this tray. I think that was really detrimental to the experiment. Thank you so much for joining me in this little soil blocking experiment. If you like more content with Zone 3 cold climate gardening, definitely give this channel a subscribe and a like to this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.